Order our city council work session, and we do have everyone present. So we'll go to our agenda for Thursday. We have a roll call by Ms. Marsh, and invocation of Reverend Donna, Pledge of Allegiance, Agenda 1, Councilwoman Landry, and awards and presentation. Thrasher, he's not here. Chief Height, Deputy Chief, you'll be here Thursday, or will Chief be back?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I'll be here Thursday.
Okay, sweet.
I think William's doing the, unless I have a different copy.
Oh, William, it's right here in my phone.
I'm like, I'm flipping. What's he reading?
All right, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Make sure. Thank you.
No, sir.
We have awards and presentation, then over to the city manager report, sir.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Normally, we would have the CCON JPA board meeting earlier that day, but that has been postponed until the 15th. So just a few projects. The Roadrunner Park design has been put out with the company called Wheat Design, and that contract's pending. You'll recall when we were short transit drivers, we put out an RFP for transit driver services. We're not going to be awarding that as we've been able to hire sufficient staff for transit now, so that won't be occurring. The Sierra Vista Pavement Condition Survey, which is one of your strategic plan items through the MPO, that has been awarded to the firm of IMS Infrastructure. And then, of course, we talked a little bit about sewer line repairs and the need for some emergency services on our sewer system. RDI will be doing some sewer line and manhole repairs, and then we'll let you know what's going on at the sewer ponds with the break in the lining when we have information available on that. And the fleet restroom, that work has begun, down at the yard, and is scheduled to be completed by June 30th. So,
All right, sir. Any questions? Comments? All right. Thank you, sir. Then we go to our item 2, consent agenda. Pro Tem Humphrey has that long dissertation, she will say. Then we go to item number 3, Councilman Johnson, Mr. John Foster, staff report.
Mr. Mayor, members of
Mr.
council, good afternoon. I'll be covering that item for today's work session. Fire Marshal Foster will make the presentation on Thursday, when we'll be requesting permission to proceed with a 30-day public comment period to level up our building codes from the 2015 edition to the 2018 edition. This involves an amendment to Chapter 150 of the Code of Ordinances, which adopts them by reference as the building codes of the city. The I codes are model building codes published by the International Code Council, which is a nonprofit organization formed in 1994. The ICC is a product of a merger among 3 separate code organizations that resulted in a uniform set of building codes developed to replace the patchwork that existed across the country. The I codes are updated by the International Code Council every 3 years. Our recommendation will be to follow the state and move up every other code cycle. So if this item is approved, we'll be proposing the next update in a couple years to move to the 2024 I codes. Our building official and fire marshal invested a lot of time reviewing the changes between the editions and found that they are relatively minor and should have minimal impact on current building practices. They also reviewed and edited out or down the local amendments that were determined as unnecessary, resulting in less deviation. In the agenda backup material, we've provided a rationale for each of the local amendments to help facilitate your review. The proposed changes were sent out to the contractor community through SACA. Last month, we held a meeting online and at City Hall to address comments and questions. There was general acceptance and understanding for moving up to the 2018 codes. Approving the update will bring us into alignment with the state, where we have an inspection services agreement in place for both manufactured home and fire marshal inspections for state-regulated facilities. We've also been in close communication with our counterparts at the county, and the goal is to achieve parity on building codes to the extent where there is reciprocity in accepting approved building plans for residential homes between the jurisdictions. I anticipate them to follow in the near future. Another point to consider is that training has been phased out on the 2015 I-codes. Our inspectors who have to maintain their certifications need to advance their knowledge to stay current. Finally, the age of our codes may have some bearing on how insurance rates are determined based on the scoring matrix that they use. We periodically have to fill out a survey that gets factored into their evaluation. So finally, no changes are being proposed on the fee schedule, except for adding a $100 charge for a residential solar system with a battery. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
I think you covered it, Mike. This question I had when I was reading it was from 15 to 18, and then they get every 3 years. So they skipped, was it because of COVID? There was no 2021.
There is a 2021 that's been put out. However, again, the state has adopted the 2018 building codes, and generally the practice is to adopt every other code cycle. A lot of things get worked out in between code cycles. And so again, our recommendation is to pattern our code adoption to follow the
Every
state.
other, okay, I see what you mean.
That's
now. So
right.
every other one, so 21's pushed out. So the next time we do this is 23, we'll do this again.
24
24.
I-codes and 25.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments? All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
We'll move to item number 4 with Councilman Rodriguez and staff report, Mr. Felix. Resolution 2023-44.
Sorry, I thought it was on the consent agenda. Mayor, members of council, we have received a donation in regards to, from a person who has passed away. JP Morgan Chase is requiring authorization by the governing body to say who can sign for the documents. And so we actually do not have anything issued by the board within the last 12 months of anybody within the city authorized to sign any documents on behalf of the city in this situation. So that's what this does. It gives me authority to sign and accept the donation. We have no idea how much it is. They won't talk to us and let us know anything until we get all the documents, then we'll get the money. So this is the second piece that we have. This is JP Morgan Chase. Well, on the plus side, they're being good in due diligence. The challenge in this grant, and we've had it in other grants, is the people make it out to the Nancy J. Brewer Animal Care Facility. That's a building in the city, and so we keep having to give them the council resolution where you name it and they have it part of it. They think people believe it's its own legal entity and not just a building in the city. So that adds to some of the confusion because they will actually donate it specifically to that name, not to the city care of. So this will give the authority to me to sign the documents, and we specifically named the Nancy J. Brewer in there to meet their requirements. And we've also put in the library, the police station, and every other named building that we have in general city. So any other issues like this come up for anything else, that we'll take care of at least for the next 12 months. And going forward, we'll probably just make this part of the annual budget resolution like we have to do for the expenditure limitation report and reimbursement financing and everything else that is an annual basis thing that we have to do, so. And when you find out how much money it is, I'll be happy to tell you.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's like a surprise. It's like Christmas. We don't know. When we got the donation for the animal shelter before, we didn't need to do this though.
No, because the proof that here's the incorporation of the city and this is a building in the city was sufficient. With the Brewer Estate, we did not have to prove it. With another, this is actually the second donation the lady has given us. We did not have to go through any of this documentation that was coming from another entity that she had given money to give to the city.
Oh,
So
okay.
in all of my times in taking care of the donations, this is the first time I've ever run into anything like this. Normally, the fact of we're a city, here's the resolution naming it, here's the tax, the IRS code 170 that allows this to happen, has always been sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Rodriguez.
So, like you mentioned, the first time you had to do this, is it, when I was reading the resolution, is it a JP Chase Morgan thing then? Is it?
It's specific to the JP Morgan Chase, however this was set up.
Right, so the donations we've gotten before from different, didn't involve JP Morgan and Chase, so that's why this is
And
different.
This is, the person has passed, so this is her estate.
Okay.
That it's the trustee of JP Morgan giving it to us.
And I also, I also understand people not wanting to donate directly to the city, because then people have the fear that we're gonna go buy something else and not go, it'll never get funneled to the, you know, to the Bruja. Yeah, I understand that as well. Okay.
And to bring that up, we always have, when donations come through, because I review everyone to make sure they're legal per the code, because we've had people try and donate things that they shouldn't, or done programs they shouldn't. But there is a way you can specify. We have a lot of donations specifically for people love the animals and people love the library. Another person just gave us $51,000 for the library and $51,000 for the animal care facility in their estate. So, and that one was just checks brought to us, showing up to Arlene with a check to say, here's a check for $51,000 from the trust. The other one was dropped off to me at City Hall for the library. So it's, you know, we get them all the time, and they can specify, and we then legally have to restrict it to what they tell us. So if they say, I want it for the library only, then that's what we can use it for.
Greg kind of said it, but I was thinking it too. What do we do to express like, do we send them a thank you letter?
Yes.
What do we?
Well, the department may send them a thank you letter, but we are required by IRS code, and the letters come back through my desk with a signed letter thanking them for their donation and acknowledging the amount. Anything over $200, we have to send them a letter saying, acknowledging the receipt of the donation for their tax purposes. So we certainly send them that, thanking them for a donation, and for your tax records, here's receipt of the donation.
Okay.
As well as the form that the department will give them if they're in the department filling it out.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
Good. People are awesome.
Yes, they are. Other questions, comments? Thank you, sir.
thanks.
Move to item number 5, Councilman Esmer and staff report. Ms. Barbara.
Okay, sure.
Approval of retiree health insurance.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Afternoon.
So before you this afternoon, I have a resolution that would involve employee benefits. This would be to bring back a retiree health insurance benefit. So, as we've discussed a few different times in recent years, we have seen some real challenges in recruitment and retention citywide, very heavily within our public safety realms. So we've been looking at different tools, and that includes everything from benefits to scheduling to pay and market studies and things. And we've discussed a few times that we're going to need an array of things to bring to the table, to work on this problem. So we looked forwards and backwards and new things out there. And one thing that came across really heavily was that the employees really appreciate, really value, and really stay. And it's also a great retention tool to offer an employee retirement benefit. So, little history there. We established the first employee retiree benefit in November of 1983. There was an amendment to it in June of 1999. There was an amendment to it in October of 2009. And it was discontinued as of June 30th, 2012. So it hasn't been in place for a while. So this proposal for y'all's discussion is to bring that back, to return that benefit back, to be able to offer the employees to stay on the state of Arizona's plan with reimbursement for the city after they meet the eligible retirement age. That would be eligible retirement under normal retirement, either under ASRS, the Arizona State Retirement System, or PSPRS, the Public Safety Retirement System. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, elaborate on anything else that you would like.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm gonna go to paragraph 3. Where it says, city would pay for the employee's premium on the state health insurance plan. This would be comparable in cost for the premium's expense, but claims would not be charged against the city's health plan and therefore would not be an added liability. What's this gonna cost us? Because according to that, I think, well, it's not a liability, so is it costing us anything or not costing us anything? I ain't stupid. I know if we're paying premiums, it's gonna cost money.
Yeah, it's going to cost as far as premiums go, which, is an expense, what we would consider like, employee burden and benefit expense. What the reference is there to the liability is that the city operates a self-insured insurance fund.
Okay.
And within that self-insured insurance fund, currently retirees go onto that fund, and oftentimes a retiree may receive some extra or more medical expenses and stuff. So in order to keep our self-insured plan from incurring the liability, this proposal and this recommendation is to put them on the state's plan. The state's plan is much larger, significantly more people on that, and it wouldn't affect a plan so much with retirees. And that benefit's available through retirees through the state as well. And that's the reference to the liability, would be the liability to the insurance plan.
Okay.
I think the second part of your question, if I understand, is what's it going to cost?
Yes, ma'am.
And a very good question. And obviously, we've calculated that the best we can. There's a lot of variables in this because we don't know exactly when people are going to retire. Currently, right now, they all reach Medicare eligible age at the age of 65, which is when this plan would come to an end for them. And so, basing on what we, estimate people coming on year one, be like 92,664, or the first year that people come on, and the estimated number. And it would go up from there the more they go on. But as people come on, people are also going to be going off within the Medicare. The maximum, or what we would consider the longest time, the median time that someone would be able to stay on the plan is 12 years. But in most cases, these people would be on the plan for 3 years or less. Did I get your question answered there?
Yes, ma'am. Well, kind of. How long they'll be on the plan, what the average time frame is,
Yeah. So
but not a figure of
so
annually.
about 92,664
that's
base. Yes.
total?
Yeah. And of course that we're looking at averaging that over time because again, ones will come on and ones will go off. But looking at our demographics right now and anticipating a retirement age or when they would become eligible in 65, we've done those calculations to the best we can, and we think that they're going to be fairly accurate. I think what we're looking at is we're not going to have the exact same dollar figure and those exact same amounts every year, but I think, that when we look over the course of this.
Okay.
And to kind of go one step further as far as your cost situation goes is because as we know, things and costs can change, is that we did add into here towards the back a sunset provision on this for June 30, 2028, which is technically 5 years from now. Now, and that being said, there's a couple of things that can happen with that. Is one, the plan can be discontinued by the governing body by y'all at any time.
Okay.
And that would mean people hiring on after the date of discontinuation forward would not be eligible for the plan. But the plan can also be renewed. So if we reach the time period of June 30, 2028, and it's good, it's beneficial, it's helping us to recruit, it's helping us to retain, and it's something that we want to do, we can do that.
Okay.
And we can look at cost.
Is there, and you might know, is there an average, is there a difference between the average, you said 3 to 4 years, between PSPRS and ASRS? Is there an average difference, or is it about the same?
It's going to be higher.
Yeah, Barbara, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Benning, I think David needs to come up and give you some of the numbers here. So he's got a little bit of a handle on that. So
Thank you.
$95,000.
We got rid of the plan and changed it for multiple of reasons. We took people off for some of the OPEB liability. Obviously, this offering this benefit gives people what we call golden handcuffs. If those people are on it, they're 3 years, 5 years from retirement, the health care that I had, that Chief Jones has, that Chief Heiser has, it's a strong incentive to stay for your full term and retire normally. That went away, and obviously retention has become more of an issue. We currently pay about $900 to $1,000 for every retiree that we have that is eligible and is currently on the plan. They will stay on the plan until they're Medicare eligible, and they transfer off. The state's plan, with the state subsidy that they get, is about the same. So there's not a real different cost if we were to start offering our own plan or adding it to the other plan to go with a state plan. The plus to this is hopefully we get people to stay longer. By going to the state's plan, this is a general fund, this will be expenses out of the individual funds. But if we have somebody, let's use myself for example, that I'm on a retiree and I have a catastrophic injury, I have a catastrophic medical problem that can cost the plan $700,000. If they're a part of the city's plan, our premiums have to eat that. Our premiums will then have to make it up. Our stop loss will kick in and will affect the value and the cost of the plan. If the people are on the state plan, you have thousands of people, tens of thousands of people across the state that this cost would get averaged over and against. So it's a benefit to the city to fund the state plan for this.
okay.
The plan will also be just like the prior one was. We will pay 100% if you retire normally with 20 years. You have to have at least 10 years. If you retire at 10 years, we'll pay 50% of that premium.
Okay.
So we'll only pay $500, and it tiers up 5% a year since then. Will there be a thing we have to put on the books for this? Yes, we'll have to put some of the OPEB expense on the books, but that is kind of a paper we owe this. It's like we currently have on the books for the people that qualify under the old plan. The biggest benefit, again, on this OPEB liability is we are not having to have our plan look at the healthcare specific to weigh into this to then have that effect on there. This is, again, the state's plan. We only have to look at what the premium estimate will be. Now, obviously, people are going to retire if they qualify, retire normally. If they leave beforehand and they don't retire normally at the city, they get nothing. Thank you. Have a nice day. We appreciate your service. It's not transferable. It's not. You can't leave with it and get a benefit. But as people also transition off, you're going to hit a point where people are going to transition off to Medicare as people are retiring, because you're going to hit that 65 or Medicare eligible, and you have to transfer off. The reason we made the current one Medicare eligible was if they changed the Medicare age from 65 to 62 or 65 to 67, we could adjust our plan accordingly so that it is, here's the new age, you're going to go. We don't have to come back to you and say, okay, we need to change the date because they changed the Medicare eligibility date. So we'll have some increasing costs to the funds over the next couple of years as people retire, because we're getting to the point where those people will start retiring, but we don't have a large wave that are going to come through and suddenly have like $100,000 the first year of new people, because we're not going to get that many to retire. So, but again, as we've got, there's people currently on our plan that are going to be aging off because they're going to become Medicare eligible. It's going to be kind of that, I hate to use a police department, but as we're getting in as many as we retire, so we're kind of at a medium area. Does that answer your question better?
Yes, sir. And then just one more question and then a comment. We're implementing, we're going to phase this in this fiscal year, right?
That's correct.
So it's in the budget already, or?
Yes.
Okay. And then just to comment to Barbara and her staff, I appreciate this, looking out for the staff, what we can do to retain them. I know it's harder, it gets harder and harder, but I appreciate your work in it, and it's something that us retirees from the Department of Defense understand. staying in and getting in for a good benefit. So we appreciate it. And thank you for the clarification on the money, David.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I want to thank Barbara and her staff, too. There was a lot of analysis that actually went into this, and we looked at three different options and all the angles of it. And going to the state plan was the most beneficial one, both to the employees and the city. This will be particularly helpful for public safety employees because under PSPRS, of course, they can retire at a younger age than the other employees in general. So they have more time in those gap years between the time they retire and reaching Medicare age. So hopefully this will help us a lot with retention and public safety. And I know a number of public safety employees have approached us about doing something like this. So I believe our plan and the budget can easily bear this, and certainly the cost of losing employees earlier, I think, far outweighs what we're going to be paying to try to keep them here.
Good job, thank you.
Sir.
That's all I got for that.
That's
one,
all you
Mr.
got?
Mayor.
All right. And Chuck, you always say, when you talk to the Granger people, I think it was, you said, do we have the best state plan?
Yes.
That's
Oh,
always a
Gallagher?
question. Yeah, Gallagher, that's it. Yeah. So thank you, sir, for
Yeah,
clarification.
my direction to them is always, we have to have the best plan in the state. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for looking out for the employees as Councilman Mr. Right Arm said. All right, so we go to the next one. Item number 6 with Michael Salaney.
Yeah, we're getting him on. He's on the line right now, don't we?
I am.
there he goes.
Oh, there you go.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, sorry I couldn't be there in person. We came up with this as a solution. I am counsel to the Sierra Vista Industrial Development Authority, and you have before you a resolution approving the proceedings of a revenue bond issue for the Santan Montessori School. It is in the amount not to exceed $18 million. This is not for a new school. It is strictly to refund the two of the existing locations that the school has, and to lower their cost of borrowing, to allow the school to better serve its students. As you recall, the Sierra Vista IDA issues revenue bonds that are payable not from its revenues nor from the city revenues, but it's strictly the pledge of the revenues derived from that particular project. In this case, it's the charter school itself. These would be sold to a bank for their purchase, and they want the rate to be lower, and they have worked that out with the bank. I'm here to answer any further questions you may have. You have before you a resolution. I provided a city council memo, and then the letter, of course, requesting action.
Yes, sir. We are in receipt. Are there any questions? Go ahead, sir.
Well, we also have Demetrius Simonson, he's president of the IDA. If he
Yes.
wants to say anything, he's in the audience, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Simonton, would you like to address?
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions of the attorney or Mr. Simonton?
No question. I mean, it's it's something we've done before with working with the IDA. Obviously, the first question people always ask is, where's the money come from? Who's liable for it? Right? It's not us. The city's not liable for it. This Montessori school is in Gilbert, Arizona. It's not in Sierra Vista.
Right.
Right. I want to clarify that as well, because people will ask about the Montessori school that we did a bond for. It's not for Sierra Vista, and why the Gilbert City Council is not involved, why we are involved. So. I think the IDAs, I think if you want to talk to that or how that works, but we've done it before, but some people may not have been around or witnessed it, how we've done these bonds before. There's a lot of math involved to previous bonds, refunding bonds for a new bond, right? It's kind of hard to follow, but overall, this new 2023 bond is going to be purchased by Sunflower Bank, and then they're going to be responsible for it.
And then the proceeds to go back to the IDA.
Yes,
And the
proceeds.
IDA can use those funds to do other things to help out So it's win-win for the city. And, I mean, it's the economic garden. That came from issuing bonds of this sort, so it's always a good thing.
Any other questions, comments? Anything, Dimitri? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Then we'll do our call to the public, comments, and adjournment on Thursday. So we'll go to item Bravo, presentation by U of A Center for Innovation on their program and incubator with the IDA. Mr. Boone.
I'm ready to use this. All right, Mr. Mayor and Council, I just wanted to do a quick introduction kind of as we get started. So really, this is a roll-up of, I don't know, in excess of 18 months of work in partnership. So it's actually good Dimitri's here because the IDA's been apart. Melanie unfortunately couldn't be here from the Chamber Foundation. But really, we've been working with the University of Arizona Center for Innovation for quite some time to get us to this point. I know there's been some questions about the incubator, and we actually have some open enrollment from a sponsorship perspective. So I thought it was important to bring up the team, and they graciously left Tucson to come down to give us a presentation today. But we've got Eric Smith, the executive director. We've got Casey Carrillo, the assistant director. So with that, I'm going to give you the opportunity to run through the slides, and we're here to answer any questions. Eric, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me today. The goal for my presentation is going to be to really educate and inform about what we do as an incubator and why we do it. Why our partners down here in Sierra Vista, with the city, with the Chamber, with the IDA, felt that it was important to begin to look at economic development from a startup growth perspective as a mix in addition to your attraction efforts. And that's really why we do this work. So I'll start with quite a bit of summary because when you say startup incubator, most people don't exactly know what I mean. So in that summary, we are a part of the Tech Park at the University of Arizona. So as you're traveling up to Tucson, that's the 1,300 acres right there off of I-10 and Rita Road. It's 2 million square feet of space. About 6,000 employees are there. Most of the operation is there to serve larger technology companies such as Raytheon and IBM. And we are a self-sustaining operation. In other words, we do not receive any university funding or public funding to make that happen. That's ultimately what goes to fund the incubator activities. And again, the reason that we do this work is to ensure that when our startup companies are successful, they hire employees in their regions, they attract more capital, they purchase infrastructure. So a couple of definitions to help. You might hear of these when you serve what we call scalable science and technology ventures. Before I get into these definitions, when I say scalable science and technology ventures, typically what this looks like is a novel or new science or technology. In our case, this could be a new drug or medical device, a therapeutic, an app, something meant for aerospace and defense, for example. They're there to fundraise money, whether that be through federal grants or equity investment from seed stage investors or venture capital. They validate that technology, they find customers, they have what they hope to be a hockey stick revenue projection, and they typically exit through IPO or acquisition within about 5 years. So those are the typical profile of the companies that we serve. And when you hear about how these companies are served, there's a few definitions that you might run across, and one is a co-working space, which is truly, as it sounds, it's a space. It's there to serve companies in need of office space or meeting space. There's no real programmatic efforts that are involved to really support the entrepreneurs to ensure that they can obtain that funding or find those customers. You might also hear of an accelerator as we continue to work through serving startup companies of this nature. An accelerator is really for those later stage companies, those that might already have funding, they're scaling, they're kind of at the upswing of that hockey stick that I mentioned earlier. Those are typically cohort-based. They are 3 to 6 months, 4 to 6 companies, and oftentimes the accelerator operation will provide some funding to help those companies move forward. We are an incubator, so we work with early to mid-stage companies. We charge a small fee for our service. We provide them with the mentorship, the subject matter expertise, and the space to help them become successful. So if you've ever been involved in a startup like this, I always show this image to kind of show the emotion that goes behind being an entrepreneur and why it's important to serve them. I know, for example, Dimitri knows this all too well. But ultimately, when you create a new company, let's say you have a new drug or therapeutic, you're very excited about it, right? You think you're solving a major problem. These companies exist to solve major problems. But then as they go out and they test the market, or they realize they need a couple $1 million in funding to actually bring that thing to bear, they kind of hit the floor. And so I know it's kind of a goofy graphic, but it kind of shows what our entrepreneurs are going through. And an incubator like ours exists to serve them right there in the experimenting and pivoting. The general statistic is that 90% of these companies are going to fail. And so our job is to try to mitigate some of that risk. We do so with a program. So this is our proprietary program. We take our startups through a continuum of education and activities. It's 27 major buckets of work. These are all the things that these companies need to know, be working on, or at least understand why it's not going to apply to them if an investor or a strategic partner or another type of partner comes in to work with them. We track 3 things: exposure, do they know it? If not, we teach it to them. Progress, so are they taking these things and implementing them into their companies? If not, we become an accountability partner for them. And if it's well developed or finished, which with the startups it very rarely ever is. Because we work in communities that have startups with varying levels of experience, maybe there are entrepreneurs in this community who have done this before and moved here, or they've been involved in other virtual programming, or they've read things online, and because we currently serve 75 startup companies, all in various stages, when companies come to us, they take a baseline on this roadmap. That's how we understand how to work with these companies. I wish I could tell you that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 27. If it were that easy, we'd all be entrepreneurs and there'd be a bunch of Ferraris in the parking lot. Unfortunately, it's not the way it goes. With 75 companies, we are all over the map, 75 different ways on this programming. And as you can see, it splits down even further. On average, these companies are with us for 2 years. For the life sciences companies, so those that are doing a lot of those healthcare technologies, they might be with us for 4. And so we're in it for the long haul with these companies. Our job is to really help to, again, mitigate that risk of failure. And we execute on that program with people. So these people are spread across southern Arizona, some in Phoenix. We can execute on all of this programming virtually. We have core functional subject matter experts that help to provide expertise in things like accounting and finance, marketing strategy, team and board development, and obtaining federal funding. In 2021 alone, the companies in our incubator obtained $10 million, a little over $10 million in federal funding into those companies. Most of that funding went into the regions that they're in. Most of those companies are in our region. We have mentors and residents. They're there to kind of help them put it all together. They're the ones who answer the phones when things are happening that are going wrong. They're redlining applications. They're providing connections. We have a programmatic staff that helps to support them on statewide efforts, such as pitch competitions or obtaining some state funding. We have an internship program funded by the Small Business Administration and Wells Fargo. And everybody below the line is the network, the village, as we say, that helps to support our efforts. And we look to build this village in every community that we're hoping to serve, which is one of the reasons why we're here today. We have physical spaces. So as I mentioned before, we are a part of the Tech Park. Our primary location is at the Tech Park. We have 20,000 square feet there. We have BSL-2 wet labs. We have dry labs, offices, conference rooms, all the things a startup could need. We have a biotech incubator in Oro Valley. We built that in partnership with the town of Oro Valley, who saw a need to do this. The reason, if you think a municipality gets involved, Oro Valley did this because of Roche. Roche is their primary employer. Roche is only there because they acquired a small startup called Ventana Medical Systems, which came through programming in a university like this. So they saw the benefits of this work in economic development, and that's ultimately what created their primary employer. So we have a biotech incubator up in there. We have a climate sustainability incubator inside of the Biosphere 2. So if you go travel over there from this point on, you will see that we have an incubator in there. Companies are actually utilizing the Biosphere 2 to do the testing and demonstration on clean energy technologies, water technologies, things of that nature. The refinery is our first building at our second tech park. It's at the Bridges. It's off of 36 and Keno in Tucson, Arizona. We're putting an incubator in there as well. So though the 75 companies, about half of them are in the state of Arizona, about half of them are in southern Arizona. For those that are in southern Arizona so far, this is where we can serve them. And again, we're exploring opportunities here in Sierra Vista. It's worthy to note that anytime we explore a community, we don't do so because we identified that we want to be in that community. We'd love to be in all communities. It's typically a community who sees something like this and wants to include this in their mix of economic development. And so we rely on a pull to come into a community. So that's very important for us. We want to make sure that we're adding value, which is why we're taking the steps that we're taking currently and exploring what's already here in terms of the opportunity for technology startups and entrepreneurs. We do a lot of other things as well. It's probably not as relevant to this presentation here. I will point out, however, if you look at the map in the top there, that is representative of our relationship with the Department of Energy. We hold a couple of contracts with the DOE. We serve clean energy startups around the nation. We find them for the DOE. We train them. We run them through Department of Energy programming. They ultimately get funding. But we do a lot of work with a number of operations throughout the world as well. Just in a summary of the general activities that we provide, and then I have a few more quick points. It says 76. Unfortunately, as of today, it's 75. That's what happens when you work with startups. We have a little over 60 startups in the pipeline in Tucson, which is pretty incredible, considering if before we were doing this work in this manner, that number would have been 10%. We do so with 11 direct support staff, a couple of others, and then the support of the staff at the tech park. The numbers down below are representative of some of the internal resources that we've been able to gather through sponsorships and contracts. And we do so at 6 locations. We have outposts in Vail and in Saurita as well. Again, economic development is the reason that we do this. So we actually work with international companies as well. We currently serve 8 companies virtually in our programming all around the world. The reason that we do this is because when they want to make U.S. market entry, they think of areas like Boston or L.A. or San Diego, New York. We attempt to show them that they can do it right here in southern Arizona and still be successful in their startup companies. So 8 of those companies are working through our programming virtually. We also have a pretty deep partnership with the State Department and other country governments where we actually have them select companies and they fund them to come to southern Arizona for a month. We provide them with a truncated version of the programming that I showed you earlier, and we show them that you can do that right here in southern Arizona and still be successful. We have a third version that we work with our international companies. It's exactly like the second. We just fund it ourselves. We have a group of companies in Tucson, Arizona that kind of believe in the economic development prospects of this work. They put money in a coffer, and then they fund that activity. In fact, most recently, and they actually just left, I believe, yesterday, in partnership with the State Department, we served a handful of Ukrainian startups for the last 6 months. The State Department pulled them out of Ukraine, put them in southern Arizona. We provided them with housing, with transportation, with all of this programming. And the goal is to replant them back in Ukraine when it's safe so that they can help to springboard their economy whenever the time is right. In fact, these are the companies that we've served around the world in the last 3 years alone. What's really interesting, and one of the reasons I bring it up at this meeting here, is everybody highlighted in blue right now. Those are companies that have moved to southern Arizona based on this work or set up their U.S.-based operation here. So it does work. In one example, we had a company from Saudi Arabia who came here. They eventually hired 30 staff, fundraised $18 million. One company. We have 75. One of the things that we do when we're working with a new community is we have a program called Sponsored Launch. It's a way of identifying what startup companies or entrepreneurs might be in a community. What we do is we work with a sponsor. In this case, we're working with the chamber, the city, and the IDA. We put out a call based on a certain set of criteria. When the sponsor is not corporate but it's municipal, typically that criteria centers around scalable science and tech. You got to be in the area that we're trying to serve. We work to publicize that we have this opportunity. Startups will apply, they'll pick some judges, they'll down select, and ultimately we will sponsor, or the sponsors will sponsor, companies inside of the incubator. So that means that the small fee that we charge to the startup company is waived. In some cases, if they're in Tucson, for example, or even down here, the office is covered, and it just removes another barrier, another cost barrier for that startup company. So you can see here, I believe you all have a copy of the slides, some of the statistics since we've been running this program. I think we've been running this program for about 3 years as well. And the goal is always, in a municipal sense, to help to identify what is there. And then once they're there, the reason I mentioned or gave an in-depth presentation on the programming is because rather than coming down and giving workshops, for example, we have a proven program. And so these startups can participate in the program. They meet with our mentors and subject matter experts, our programmatic staff, participate in workshops just as our other startups would. They could do it 8 hours a day or 8 hours a month. It totally depends on the company and depends on their life cycle and depends on the opportunities that are in front of them. And that's ultimately how we execute on that program. There's a number of reasons why folks do it. I mentioned earlier, why municipalities typically do it. And for us, our job first is to make sure that there's a population of entrepreneurs in Cochise County to serve. And again, these are scalable science and tech entrepreneurs. This is different than, let's say, the lifeblood of Southern Arizona, our retail entrepreneurs, our restaurants, food trucks, things like that. They're served through various entities such as maybe the Small Business Development Center, city programs, things of that nature. We're very specialized in working with these scalable tech startups. It's a very high risk, high reward for them and quite honestly for anybody that serves them as well. If we're unable to find a large crop of startups in this area, that does not mean that it just simply cannot happen. It means that you have to build capacity. And that's when you begin to educate the community in general or work within high schools, things of that nature, to ensure that individuals see this as an opportunity for them as well. So I kind of referenced the process, but I'll just leave it to you. I think I'm running out of time. That's me, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
Be quiet.
Go ahead.
I'll go. Now, you said you're researching Sierra Vista to come here and do this. With the College of Applied Science and Technology moving locations, are y'all coordinating anything with them to get some of the building area that they're moving into or taking over?
So we're currently working with Dimitri here and the IDA. Actually, it would be should we find enough capacity here to serve and bring into the region, having them there right next to the economic garden that he's building with his team would be able to create one of the things that incubators do from a physical perspective. Now we've kind of broken the mold and gone all over the place. However, if you can in each region create the opportunity for companies to interact with each other, half the time they learn more from each other than they would from us, just based on experiences. So that's what we're looking at. But we are coordinating with the College of Applied Science as well. What we're doing right now is trying to make sure that we get an accurate representation of what's here, and the way that we can do that is by making sure that it reaches every corner of Sierra Vista. Again, one of the reasons why I'm in front of you today.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
On your overview slide, it says successfully sponsored 18 companies. Is there a list somewhere of what kind of companies, what they kind of do, or I'd like to see that. Or I think if somebody were in this field or interested in this field, I think they'd want to say, hello, I know that company, I've heard of that company, they went through your incubator, so I can do it too, kind of thing. I would love to see that, if it's possible somewhere.
Absolutely. So you can look at a current list of our companies if you just uaci.com.
Okay.
Companies. We have a 1 sentence description for each one of those and a website if they have it. Some of them do, some of them don't. The really unique part about this kind of work is typically you won't have heard of these companies. You won't see this in the marketplace if it goes to a consumer version. Oftentimes it's business to business for 2 years, for 5 years sometimes. So we like to say that we get to see into the future. But you can find a full list at uaci.com.
Cool. And that's the Tech Park building, gorgeous.
Yeah.
If you ain't seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, your refinery, we were there for the Huachuca strategic plan, and it's amazing.
We're thank you, and we're very excited. On the first floor, as you walk in, just off to the left, that's where we're going to create the incubator portion of that building.
Oh.
Off to the right is Tech Launch Arizona. That's the technology transfer function of the university. So they launch startups based on researchers' inventions specifically.
Yes, sir.
We capture them.
Well, that's exciting.
Oh, amazing. Okay. All right. Because off to the left wasn't really developed. It was,
That's my space right there.
okay. Okay. Yeah. So, excellent. Any other questions for Mr. Smith?
One more
Yes,
thing.
sir.
You said you work with high schools. What have you guys done with that, or historically, or what has worked for you guys, or what do you see for the future for that?
Apologies if I misspoke. We have not come up to a point yet with a community where we've needed to approach that path.
Okay.
Typically, we'll average, when we do a sponsored launch, maybe 8 to 13 applications, which is a good indication that there's enough here to work with. We don't actually even work with University of Arizona students or any students.
Right.
There are great programs there for that. We will wait for them to graduate if they really do want to create a company, and we'll begin to work with them then. One of the reasons is because come April, oftentimes they realize that they have to get, a job. And so all the work that we put into the startup with them, if they're not as serious about it, doesn't happen. We do, however, give lots of tours to college students and to high schools. Our staff goes and speaks to high schools very frequently. The kind of work that we would be doing in high schools, let's say in an area like Sierra Vista, we wouldn't necessarily be doing it. We'd be supporting it along with the resources that already exist. Again, it takes a village. But we might come in and talk about things like this or give inspiring examples or bring our entrepreneurs down to kind of show folks at that level that if they want to do it, they can.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Sir.
I appreciate, I'm glad you're working with our IDA. I'm gonna ask Mr. Dimitri to step up too, so he can add his piece with the IDA piece, if you don't mind, and how that partnership's working.
I'm not going to go in depth, Mr. Mayor and Council, on the whole IDA component, but I did want to speak to the high school component.
Sure.
So we are currently working with Boynton High School, CAS, and then Pep Tech High School to support FBLA and DECA. And Mr. Smith spoke to capacity building, right? That's what we're doing now to get those students ready. So hopefully they'll have those ideas, they'll see the support that's in the ecosystem, and hopefully one day they'll get to a point to where they can apply to the incubator. So that's what we're doing to, in a sense, cultivate the environment right now.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes, sir. Wanted him to speak on that. Yeah. All right. Any other questions, comments?
Just,
Mr. Smith? Yes, ma'am.
Tony, you said open enrollment. Was that the same as the sponsored launch that Eric was talking about?
Right, yeah. Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey, correct. So the open enrollment is open till the 23rd of June. There's a couple different elements to it. So the fee is $5,000. We've been able to work out with Eric. So there is money within the general fund. There's actually money in the budget that you are looking at for next year, upwards of $125, so up to 4 businesses that are in Sierra Vista. The partnership with the IDA then allows us to deal with businesses that are outside the city and the county. And then if you've seen the gala and the effects and what Melanie's been working towards on the foundation, that would allow them to sponsor a business beyond the city limits. So somewhere between all of us, we may be able to get between 4 and 6 businesses. Now, I will be honest with you, the challenge thus far has been to find the people meeting the screening criterion moving forward, which is where Eric's talked about, and Dimitri's trying to stir the pot and trying to work on the ecosystem. So what I would offer to you is the Moonshot event, which is unrelated but related, pitch contest on Saturday, is related to drive the ecosystem. I had the benefit of going with some of the Fort leadership and discussions about the efforts of Dr. Rottweiler and Cochise College on the innovation center that they're looking at. And one of the things we talked about, they're going actually initially after soldiers and trying to go after the line of effort 1, driving innovation and those things for Fort Huachuca. But we also talked about what we could bring into the city from a city staff perspective. And we talked about where we might go into things like high school to give them a model set to think about a problem, identify the problem and innovation, and eventually grow them into someone that Eric would like to bring into his program. And as we've talked about here, if they don't meet the screening criteria, that doesn't mean we don't want them to apply, because we will attempt to find the right place for them and the right assistance. So, as we look out, and that's why we've run a couple different ads. The Herald Review provided a nice article, both virtually and in their paper. But we've actually encouraged folks to come in and engage us and talk to us. And they can work it through Dimitri in the IDA, Melanie in the chamber, Diana and I in our office. But really, all of these things are kind of the bigger master plan. We've got some brilliant people in this community. I know it. And we know there's some great, phenomenal ideas out there. This is all trying to create the environment where they will take the next step or continue down the road with an idea that they've got. Because at the end of the day, if we build businesses here, that's the bulk of where our jobs and our future will come from. The attraction and all the bringing people in is great. It's phenomenal. It's sexy. It goes on, headlines. But at the end of the day, taking the workforce and the brilliant people that we've got, both in the city and the county, that's where it will go. If you look at Oro Valley, I mean, there's multiple evidences of the idea was there, and that's why Roush is there now. So that's the big idea, and you'll see the bits and pieces. The final piece I'll say is the selection for the city-sponsored events would go back to the Economic Development Commission, and they would be our screening criteria and make the recommendation to the city staff. So it's not my decision, it would be the commission's decision. If we get them through, and maybe the better statement is when we get them through, to be able to sponsor them down the road.
I think it's a great direction. I mean,
Yes, sir.
it's a bright future.
Now, and last piece I'll say, it's great to work with Eric and his team. Look, we know where we have strengths and we know where we have weaknesses, and let's find a program that's got a track record and extend them from Tucson into the city. And we have had a discussion with Dean Packard and where they go and what they will do down the road, so we'll see how that all turns out.
Okay.
But let's not reinvent the wheel in Army speak. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any que- yes, go
sorry.
ahead.
Sorry, Tony, I know you're like walking away. So the choices will go to the if you get some choices, they'll go to the Economic Development Commission to decide if we sponsor them. Is that how this?
Correct.
Okay. And is there going to be any attempt, because we're already really good at collaborating with all our community partners, and I'm thrilled that you're a part of that now, but the EDA is doing that designation, the tech hub designation. Are we looking at, only because we already work together so well, is that something that we're looking at to?
I'll try to answer that without speaking out of term. So.
Right, I know it's kind of.
So actually, in Southern Arizona, there is a group that is working on Tech Hub's application. I am unaware of a group specifically in Sierra Vista, but I can tell you that it's a regional approach, and so the appropriate contact down here will be contacted or engaged when the time is right. I know it's pretty early in the process right now, and so there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen trying to figure out what the region looks like, what we should be serving, how we should make it happen, who should lead, and so then we'll begin to kind of branch out and go that direction.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. And we will proceed to now for our 24-25 strategic plan, sir. Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, you've got the same documents here that you had at our last work session, and hopefully you've had some time to review and consider them. The first document is the draft that I took the notes document that our consultant sent us and edited that, and also gave you the notes document for your review so you could compare the two. This is time for your discussion, any changes you want to make, and the plan is ready when you are. So there's no timeline and so on to get it approved and completed. It's whenever you feel it's ready. And I'll be happy to take any feedback you might have.
Ma'am, feedback on our strategic plan for 24-25. Continue to look at it. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
No, just a few things. I know we talked about engineering. When it comes to strategic planning, we're gonna do like, do you want the numbers? Are we doing like number of this, and then we're gonna go
Yes.
technical into it? All right. 5.3. Since we're talking about, that's all about the fields and stuff like that, right? Improvements.
I'm sorry. Are we on the old or?
Oh, what number is it now?
So,
Prioritize. Maybe. What is it?
this is the one we have to approve.
Yeah.
there's only.
I didn't have the printout. I thought I had the right one. It's okay. We're good.
You want mine?
Yeah, it's fine. Something else. It's nothing major, so I'll just bring it up later. But
Okay. Sure.
yeah, it's fine. It was something small.
Okay.
Because we still got 2 more meetings to discuss it. So
Yes, sir. Yes,
that one I'll just bring up later.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments? All right. And we'll wait to hear those.
Are you looking for us to give you direction to put it on an agenda and get approved, or?
Yes, when you're ready, this would come back to you as an agenda item for approval. So I need to know when council feels it's ready for you to vote on.
You're ready.
Ready?
Born ready.
I would just say we'll wait on your comments
Okay.
until we're ready to vote on it.
Okay.
If that's good with the council.
I'm okay with that.
Either way, I'm
So
ready.
next,
Probably next, yeah,
end of the month,
Like one
The
more work
next meeting?
session.
right,
next work session.
okay.
You good with that?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't need that. If that's how long we have to wait, that's fine. Just
So we say the next workstation, we'll talk about it again and then put it on the agenda for the next council meeting?
Roger
or-
that.
I'm with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what we'll do is we'll have the plan on the next agenda. Obviously, you'll have another chance at the next work session to discuss it one final time, and we'll have time to make any changes that you might make, but we'll get it on the next agenda.
That'd be great. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good with that? All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And we'll go to item number Delta D, report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. Yes, ma'am.
Well, yeah, it's on the calendar, but the Arts and Humanity and Culture Diversity will be meeting on June 20th, which is already on there, but that'll be our first meeting since the reorganization of the commission, so.
Excellent. Youth meeting this week?
this week, later this month.
Okay, later this month. All right. Any other meetings? We have one tomorrow with Governor DeSantis and at the Cochise College all day. So, well, most of the day. Any others? Nothing? And future discussion items and council requests, ma'am? Sure. Go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't currently have anything concrete on my list, but there are a few things in the works, so.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this is gonna be, if I'm requesting for a work session or maybe a council retreat to go over the council handbook, and just kind of come in line as a council on responsibilities and priorities and looking at the council handbook one more time as a group.
All right. So for a work session?
That I don't know if it'll be a work, I don't know the best route to go with it, if it's a work session or maybe do a 1 hour retreat.
It could be, if you envision it taking an hour and a half or longer, we could just set up a special work session to do that, as opposed to, like a retreat's usually like a half day or a full day thing. But
Yeah, no, just maybe
if you think you
special
can
work session.
finish it in an hour and a half, we can set up
All right.
another work session for it.
So council handbook
I mean,
review?
even if we wanted to, I know we have 2 days set aside for a special meeting, just in case we need 3 of the budget sessions.
We'll use one of
If those are canceled, maybe we could use one of those, since they're already scheduled, or,
Use one of those days?
so we'd have to wait for that to see if.
Yeah, those are already scheduled, so.
Okay. See if we go over that Monday or that next,
Roger.
yeah.
Although
Okay.
you would have to decide, excuse me, Mayor and Council, sorry,
Okay.
you would have to decide if they're currently noticed as budget work sessions. So if you decide on Monday, we'd have to adjust the agenda for Wednesday to change the agenda. So we need to make that at least 24 hours notice.
Okay. All right, so we have to gauge it on Monday.
And just one other question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Mr. Benning, is there any staff prep that you would like to have us do prior to doing that?
No, sir, not at the time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, we just go to online and print the handbook so we can,
No, the
and read
handbooks
that?
are
Is that, I mean, that's what we need to do?
Yes, or we'll email it to mayor and council after this meeting. And it was, unless you want to decide at this point that you want to change one of those budget work sessions right now, we can notice it, but.
Well, we need a couple budget work sessions.
Can we just change it to possible discuss, like, just change the words to say possible budget discussion, or?
I
And
think we
then
can do that,
We
can't
can,
we?
we can just add it to the agenda now, and if you decide to cancel
Okay.
it, you can cancel it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Excellent. Yes, sir.
I did note that we do have some kind of a conflict on the 28th of June between the SVMPO and the Environmental Stewardship going to be meeting in the same room. There's like a half-hour overlap on those two.
Okay, we'll check into that.
Okay, all right. Because right now, Environmental Stewardship is scheduled for 3:30 on the 28th, and we have the SVMPO at 2:30.
Yeah.
We go 2:30 to 4 usually on the.
We'll find a
SVM.
venue and deconflict it.
I'll have to,
There's also, he serves on
I'm
both.
I'm on the
so-
board, so.
So we'll have to change the time of the second one,
You
yeah.
be in the
Or
same
the
room,
date.
you're good.
Or the date, okay.
Already there,
Fair
you can't be
enough.
late.
We can do that.
Thank you, Chuck.
Good catch.
Clone you. All right. Any other questions?
One more.
Yes, sir.
Just for, this would be an admin, I guess, a request. Just want to see, you've probably seen the emails about email traffic about how things come out of city employees' paychecks.
Yes, sir.
Like, how is that paid to things like that, like child support, right? I'd want to see, like, what's the process for that? If things don't go, how does the city cover that? If, like, to me, that's pretty important. Like, if I don't chase child support, there's some legalities behind it. So if it doesn't come out on time and things like that, what's the process?
Yes, sir.
For things like that come out automatically of paychecks, and you know what can and what can't come out, things
Yes,
like
sir. And we talked about that this morning with city manager and Mayor Pro Tem. And so you want to see like a policy or?
that. Yeah, just policy.
Okay. All right, sir.
I think it would be pretty simple, Mr. Mayor, to just add it to that work session and just let you
Okay.
know what the process is. That particular situation was already handled, so.
Thank you.
But,
All right. Cool. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Any others?
Wednesday.
With that, we are adjourned.